Oh my God, Prince Harry is driving me crazy. He's driving me absolutely nuts. This red squirrel that lives in between my first and second floors. Oh, he spent the whole winter with me, and I am not used to having roommates, and I haven't had roommates in years, and I've had enough. This is a show about jewelry, why we wear it, why it matters, how it's made, and what it means. I'm Alex D, and I turn cannabis into gold. I make mind-blowing jewelry in gold, silver, and platinum from cannabis plants here in Canada for stage, screen, for people who want to rock crazy jewelry. I'm the cannabis goldsmith. And you'd think, oh, just so adorable. But no. When they get in between a floor or a wall and they start scratching and making noises at 2 a.m, you don't want that at all, right? And that's, it was pretty good all winter. You know, I would rap on the ceiling with I have this big stainless steel ladle that I whack on the ceiling with, and he goes quiet for a while. But like, now, I guess it's spring. God knows what he's up in there doing. He's probably mating, or he's probably raising more little red Prince Harrys to. Anyway, I think I've had enough of Prince Harry. So I'm making it my mission this year to eliminate him from my life. Now, I'm not going to kill him. I don't want to do that. I was thinking the other day, if a car comes along, no, I'm not even gonna go there with it. I'm gonna live trap him, and I'm gonna drive him maybe 5-6 kilometers away from here and cut him loose in a forest so that he can find more of his own kind and not bug me anymore. Now, then I have to find the way he got into the house, and that is impossible because he is such a tiny little thing that he can get into a hole with a diameter of like a half an inch or an inch or whatever. This is an old house, and there's plenty of those around the old house. So I'm going to have to carefully see where he's coming in and try and seal that up with steel wire. Then the other thing is I can see sort of where he's going in, but it's under my front deck. So I'm going to have to rip out the entire front deck to get to the part where he's going in. So this will be a multi-$1,000 job to sort out this little Prince Harry mother. Anyway. Okay, today I'm going to talk about, you'll notice a couple things. I've changed the logo a little bit, and hopefully it's coming through on your podcast app. If not, it will eventually. I think the Spotify host will feed it to you eventually. Just a little change. Nothing too significant. I've put a Canadian flag on there and changed some colors up a bit. That's all. Nothing dramatic. But today I'm going to talk about the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which is our national broadcaster here in Canada. We have a situation where we're in the middle of an election right now, and one of the candidates, the Liberal candidate, the Trudeau candidate, Mark Carney, he wants to just lavish the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation with billions. You know, I think it's now $1.8 billion or $2 billion in. He just wants to give them more and more money. Now, the other candidate, the Conservative candidate, has he wants to defund the CBC, and he's clarified what that means just recently to say that he wants them to survive on their own. He doesn't want to prop them up with government money. He wants them to compete in a journalistic sense in the world. And so that's what he means. He doesn't want government money going into them. He wants them to fend for themselves. And anyway, so those are the two possibilities. I'm going to introduce a third possibility. And why I'm introducing this is because I think it's a good idea. And I do have some connections to both parties, actually, the Liberal and the Conservative Party. And I send them letters and emails and phone and contact. when I have an idea that I think will make our country better, I'm whoever's in power, I'm sending them a mail and I'm talking to them about it. This is what we need to do here. They don't listen to me, but as a Canadian, it's my right and my duty to stand up for my country, and I do. And I do it with ideas. So the idea here is to make the CBC a better institution and more representative of the country. I think that's what the basic goal is, and I've got an idea around that. It's not terribly political or anything like that, but anyway, you'll hear it. But the whole CBC thing is part of a larger problem in Canada because we have the Trudeau government passed these internet laws, which fund journalism in Canada. Journalism was failing around the world as internet, as digital media grew. Brick and mortar newspapers, the old newspapers, they started to suffer. Their they couldn't sell ads against Craigslist. They lost their classified ad source of revenue. That was huge for newspapers, classified advertising, especially for alternative weeklies like in Canada, in our big cities. Like in Toronto, we had Now magazine and I magazine, which would come out every week in newsprint, and they were filled with classified. The Now in particular, filled with classified ads from like strip clubs and hookers and all this stuff. And they used to make huge money off this. I mean, the Globe and Mail would have, Canada's national newspaper would have like ads for like timeshares in the Cayman Islands or whatever. And they're classified different, trying to hit a different target. The target reader was completely different. The Now reader was likely living above a second cup with another four, people with tattoos. But the Globe and Mail reader was living on the bridle path in a big mansion. So that's the difference there. But anyway, so Trudeau, the Liberal government decided they wanted to control. They said they wanted to support journalism in Canada, but really it was a way to control journalism in Canada by funding. So state-funded journalism. Their ultimate goal was to have one entity in Canada that provides news, information, and communications to Canadians. They call it a reliable entity, and one that would. They say the Liberals resolved to do this at their most recent convention. They said that they want one entity that is representative of, and they want it because it prevents misinformation. That's what they claim, right? But it's not that at all. It's a way to control communications in the country. And that's what they're doing. They're controlling the communications during this election cycle. Because all the press now is funded by the government, by the Liberal government. And they know that if the Liberal government loses, their funding might be cut. So it's tainting and influencing all their coverage. And they're doing it now. They're throwing all their weight behind Mark Carney. The Canadian press, the Canadian media, they all print the same pro-Carney stories, and they don't print any stories about Pierre Poilievre. So what they're doing is exclusionary. They're excluding stories about the candidate that they don't want to win. And that's what's happening in the Canadian media. Now, the CBC is in a different kind of boat because it's the biggest state-funded entity, and it's our national broadcaster. A full 1/3 of Canadian journalists work at the CBC and are funded by taxpayers. 1/3 of Canadian journalists' wages are fully funded by taxes from you and me in Canada. Now, you people around the world, you're listening to this. My listeners around the world are thinking, "Oh, we have a broadcaster too, or we have the BBC, or we have the SABC, or we have I guess Australia has one too." But ours is a little bit of a different kettle of fish, and I'm going to try and describe how or why in a minute. The CBC is, okay, it's funded by the government, but they also sell advertising. So they're competing against independent, private news entities and broadcasters in Canada. They're tax funded so that they can sell advertising cheaper and undercut the prices of independent media in Canada. So they've snuffed out completely all the independent media. Now this is a problem. Now the Canadian government, in its wisdom, developed this law that bakes Google into our laws in Canada, that forces Google to commit to funding $100 million a year into a pool of money that is divided up by independent media, apparently, and maybe some mainstream media, too, thrown in there. They divide it all up amongst them by some formula nobody knows except for them. They've given it away to people nobody knows, I guess, except for them. And there it is. So the funding just went out before the election hit. So you know it's money for coverage. And this is not the way to run journalism. That's advertorial content. It's not journalism content. So as a result, our Canadian, we don't have real true journalism in Canada anymore in the mainstream media. It's all state funded, all of it. And it's horrible. So I guess the reason why Mark Carney wants to lavish them with more billions is that as the other news entities close down and shut, because they will, and the journalists working at them go away or quit or sign up to work for DoorDash or whatever, the one organization left is the CBC, and all the journalists there are funded by taxpayers, and they're also selling ads to prevent any new startups in the news space. Now, there are a couple of media entities in Canada. I mentioned one last week, the week before, the Hub, which just emerged, and they're operating on a model that doesn't have advertising, that I don't think, but they're operating on a model that is a subscription model. So you have to pay for your news access on their network. And their news is, I guess, center-right, in a political position, but you get a calmer, quieter coverage of what's going on, and not a bunch of political operatives sitting on a panel on the CBC telling you how to vote. That's the difference. So what's happening in Canada? We don't have media can't be trusted anymore because of state funding. So state funding has to be pulled out of media, all media. It has to come out. And the few journalists that are left in the industry now in Canada are not going to like that, but that's the reality. That's the fact. They're either going to age out like Chantal Hébert and Andrew Coyne and all these CBC, these ancient geriatric political pundits that sit on these CBC panels and root for the Liberal Party of Canada. That's going to be, they'll die off or retire out, or get appointed to the Senate by Mark Carney, or if he wins. So this is where they're going to go. But there's no new people coming up from the bottom because all the new stuff has been eliminated. All the new journalism. The journalism programs in Canada have all been cut after this, our internet laws that are supposedly to support journalism. So it's just destroyed Canadian journalism. So anyway, one of the reasons I think I'm voting for the Conservative Party. The main reason is because my local candidate is amazing here. I like him. But the other, I think, equally important reason is that Pierre has said he's going to rescind these internet laws. The C11 in particular is a bad one, and it's the one that's destroyed Canadian journalism. So eliminate that. Get everybody on. Here's the thing. I record this podcast. It's me with a microphone here. With the Globe and Mail, it's 4 producers, 2 hosts, 3 guests that are journalists also. They're not guests that know and not experts. They mostly interview other journalists. Now, this huge production team to put out a 20-minute podcast that somebody can do in their garage. Like, this is where we're at. So the whole idea of journalism has to be thought about differently in Canada. And that's why I'm on side with the conservative idea to take tax funding out of the CBC. They should either get tax funding or they should sell advertising, but not both. And I think they should not get tax funding. Okay? Or if they do, okay, this is the caveat here. I'm thinking convert the CBC into something else. Convert it into something worthwhile. Instead of a propaganda spigot for the Liberal Party, convert it to an arts and culture entity that promotes Canada to the world. Now, this is my idea of what we can do with the CBC. Here, instead of getting mired in this, is it a propaganda tool? Yes. Or not? No. Or what can it be? Is it too expensive? Yes. What kind of journalism does it do? Mediocre. All that stuff. You don't worry about any of that anymore. What you do is you take away the tax funding. You get them out of news coverage and political coverage completely. This is what the Liberal Party wants. This is why C-11 was passed, is to skew political opinions in the country, to control the communications so that the political party can use it to influence the electorate. Now, we don't want any of that. So we get them out of news and politics. So if Pierre wins, I'm going to send him an email. I'm going to say, Pierre, you say you're going to you're going to defund them? Fine. But here's another idea. Why don't you get them out of news? They have to get out of news and politics because they have no credibility at all in that sector anymore. But the CBC brand as a public broadcaster in Canada has huge brand equity. Now, Canadians know the CBC. They know it because it's the national broadcaster. The exploding cabbage logo, everybody in Canada knows that logo. Now, around the world, the CBC doesn't have much of a presence, really. I mean, it doesn't. It's not the BBC. It's not recognized like the BBC. The CBC, nobody really knows what it is outside this country. But in Canada, it's got great brand equity. So that brand can be buffed, polished, and used for another purpose. And here's the other purpose: arts and culture. Over the last 9 years of the Liberal Party, they've snuffed out Canadian culture and heritage to try and diminish, to divide and conquer, to put us in all little groups, LGBTQ or whatever, different subgroups of Indigenous people, or and they pit us against each other. No. What we need is a CBC that focuses on growing arts and culture in Canada, growing the amazing arts sector that we have in Canada that is completely ignored by the Liberal government. I mean, I think we need to just showcase the beauty of Canadian products. I make amazing Canadian products here on the river in southeastern Ontario. Just incredible. I make Canadiana type products like miniature hockey sticks and sterling silver, but also we're the world's jeweler who makes precious metal jewelry products from the cannabis plant. Like, where else but in Canada can you do that, right? This is an art that should be talked about. I'm doing it on my podcast. But there are other people in the country that make pottery, that make paintings, that make hand-painted scarves, that do all. This is what the CBC should be about. It should be about bigging up our music, promoting our jungle scene, which is the most, which is serious in Canada. Jungle music is serious, in Canada. We need to big it up. We need our house music DJs featured on CBC. We need our dancers, our ballet people. We need to bring the CBC into a position where if it's tax funded, and this is what I'm going to suggest to Pierre, and I'm not a lobbyist or anything, I'm an old guy in Canada, an artist, a designer, photographer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, as a concerned citizen, this is what I'd like to see the CBC become. Okay, let's just not close it, but let's fix it. Let's modify it. Let's do major cuts. Let's take away the funding, first off. The tax funding, or let's eliminate the news and political analysis or political commentary part of it, give them funding, but change it into an arts and culture channel. Now, and I'll tell you why this is good. Not only is it good for our country because it builds on the patriotism that is now developing throughout our country. It grows the patriotism on our country. It grows that, I'm going to say, nationalism. Some people think that's bad, but here we have it. So let's work with it, right? The Americans have forced us into a position where we have to defend ourselves. So let's do it smartly with communications. Let's make sure our national communications platform is not owned by a political party, a single political party, like the liberal parties are using it for now. But it's not only the CBC, they're doing this to the other mainstream media because they fund it all. But anyway, this is just about CBC. Let's turn it into an engine for cultural growth for Canada, to magnify our cultural excellence and to showcase it to the world. Okay, another thing that a new CBC could do is encourage young people to come on board. Okay, make it more diffuse. Spread it out. Sell the headquarters building. Make it work from home. All right? Get independent journalists out there. It's the way I describe this is like, for defense purposes, you don't want a $2 billion US fighter jet, a single one for $2 billion these days. You want 100,000 drones. That's what you want. You want 100,000 drones. You don't want one single aircraft from the United States that they can turn off remotely. That's not what you want these days. You want a dispersed, diffuse base. And I think if we eliminate the central Politburo CBC headquarters building and encourage younger people to get into journalism, and I'll tell you how we can do that. If we're not giving the CBC billions, we can put that money into journalism programs at colleges for the new journalism of the future. That's more diffuse and dispersed, and writing into independent podcasts and independent websites and independent apps and stuff that talk about news in Canada. But the CBC, I think, should be all about culture and promoting Canadian culture. Also, and this is really important now, since we're going into a newer world in Canada, a world without the United States, we have to encourage countries to like us even more. I mean, everyone loves Canada except for the United States, but we need to polish and buff that constantly. We need to encourage it because it gets tourists to come to our country, but it also encourages deals, business deals from foreign nations, from investors. We should take a piece of the CBC and use it to promote Canada internationally. So what I was talking about before was within Canada, we need to build up our own arts and culture within Canada. A new CBC could do that. But a segment of the CBC should be focused on building up our image around the world. Now, the Voice of America was a radio station, website entity that the Americans ran. And what that was basically a propaganda tool to promote U.S. values to the world. Now, they left. Trump has shut that down, and there's a vacuum in there now for us to step into. And we should, as Canadians, we should step into that space with the CBC. We should be promoting Canada to the world. We should be promoting democratic values to the world with the CBC. But you see, now if they're a state-funded media that right now that is actually going against democratic values, that this is unlikely to happen. So the funding has to be pulled or something has to be done. They have to be ordered to get out of news programming and political programming, but then get into, as I said before, domestic cultural, just growing our culture and heritage in Canada. And then two, to big up our Canadian vibe and our Canadian community and our land and our business and our economy and our resources, to just showcase it to the world. So a CBC in a kind of Voice of America context could do that. Now, these days with AI, you don't need to hire 189 translators to translate the website or the app or the podcast to every language in the world, but now AI can do that. So for a couple of $100 a month. So we don't need billions of dollars to do that, right? We need a unit in the CBC that is set up to be like the Voice of America, but for Canada. That's what we need. So that's what I would do with the CBC. Get it out immediately. Get it out of news programming because it doesn't do it well. It's skewed. It's just the whole. These internet laws have destroyed the credibility of Canadian news and political coverage in Canada. It's just finished. If it's not coming to you from an independent source or from outside Canada, from a reputable journalist's or media source outside Canada. These are the only things we can trust now in Canada in the way of news. News. I mean, like if you're reading a story on the BBC, but they're quoting a journalist who works for the CBC, then that story is not credible in my opinion, because it's funded by the state. Anyway, so that's where I am with that. I'm old media guy. I appreciate that the newspapers are finished and the big TV stations are finished, and it's all become much more diffused now, and I think that's where we should focus. And if Pierre wins, I'm going to be the first guy to send him a letter saying, congratulations, now here's what to do with the CBC. So anyway, that's what I think about the CBC. What else is going on art-wise? I've been thinking about doing video, and I know this is a trap. This is why I'm delaying doing it, because it's extra work for me to do. And what I mean by video is video accompanying this podcast. So people are saying, "Oh, you can grow your podcast. You can only grow your podcast if it has a video, if it's video, right?" But then they don't make it easy to do because the video on my host here doesn't work with YouTube. So I have to cut a special video for YouTube that isn't related to the podcast. So it becomes complicated. Now you see these podcasts where guys are sitting in front of a microphone talking into, sitting on a chair talking. I don't want that. That's boring. I don't want to see some dude talking on a microphone. Fuck that shit. I want to see other stuff. So if I'm going to do a video, it's going to be different. It's going to be like overhead shots of the bench as I make something, or like walking around the yard, it'll be something that's not sitting in like a head looking at talking to you from a microphone, because it might be great for YouTube, but it's not art. Anyway. All right, we have 2 weeks to go until the election is over. The polls are tightening here in Canada. It's tightening. So I don't know. I don't even believe the polls anymore. I don't know. Since they're controlled, a lot of them are controlled by the media people who hire them to do the polls, which are state funded. You can see how it all works together to create an information space that has no credibility, except for the people controlling it, which is, in this case, in Canada, the Liberal government for now. So anyway, tonight is the French. We have 2 debates in Canada. We have an English debate and a French debate. Tonight's the French debate. I think it's going to be very feisty, so I'm going to watch it. Maybe I should get some popcorn or something. I know what I'll do. I don't drink, so maybe I'll take maybe I'll have a double espresso and then a sleepy time tea, for that kind of geriatric speedball vibe. And then watch the French debate. Anyway, that's it for me this week on the Cannabis Goldsmith. I hope you get our new logo tile for the show. Hope it comes through. And I'm still thinking about video. We might have video yet eventually. All right, now, last thing before I go. If you're a Canadian listening to this podcast, I make the most amazing sterling silver hockey sticks. They're the perfect gift for a hockey fan. They're 6 inches long. They come in a beautiful plush case. They're designed and finished in southeastern Ontario in Upper Canada and cast by Ed, our master goldsmith in Toronto. Just beautiful pieces. They come in a plush gift box. So for a hockey fan, somebody who was just made captain of the team, or this is the perfect gift for them. Or if you just love hockey, this is the best thing to receive. So anyway, if you're Canadian, I've got a Canadian pricing up at tribe.ca/hockey. Have a look. Now, Americans, you can still buy our products, and right now I think they can still get into your country tariff-free, but who knows? And if you want, just email me and let's talk, and we can still work something out, I think, with you. And you folks around the world, again, send me an email if you want us to make something special for you. That's it for me this week on the Cannabis Goldsmith. Next week, it's going to be pretty tight next week with the election impending and spring coming, and there's so much going on. The Cannabis Goldsmith is produced by Tribe Communications, Inc. in the Thousand Islands area of Ontario, Canada. We recorded in our studio in southeastern Ontario along the St. Lawrence River, where we can see America across the river. Subscribe to the Cannabis Goldsmith wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the show and tell your fellow artist friends about it. It's the only artist podcast coming to you right from a studio every Wednesday morning. We'll see you next week on the Cannabis Goldsmith. Oh, if you want to reach me, send me an email, alexd@cannabisgoldsmith.com. Thanks for listening.